Hello everyone, this is Max. You are watching Equity Match Online live pitch event. Today this is our pitch event number 112, and we have four great funders coming as always from Europe. As today we have pitch event for Europe and US. Unfortunately, two funders had a problem. Maybe they are not able to come, or maybe they will come later. But anyway, we go ahead as planned. Now, before starting from investor guests, introducing on funders, we are streaming right now live on YouTube, X, LinkedIn, and Facebook. For everyone who wants to come to pitch, just send your email to pitch@equitymatch.co. And if you want to raise any questions or funders, just do that online and we do the rest. Now, before starting, let me introduce to you our investor guest, Jeffery Potvin. Jeffery, if you want to give a short intro to yourself.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Max. Welcome, everybody. My name's Jeffery Potvin, and I'm an early stage investor. And most recently, we are in the process of raising a third fund. And it's a bit of a unique fund. We've kind of changed the tables on how it operates. But our goal is to be a roll-up fund where we make primary investments and then acquire companies on behalf of our primary. And our focus for our third fund is in the green climate tech space, circular regenerative. And yeah, we're certainly been in the market for a long time, and we're big fans of early stage companies. So looking forward to seeing everybody today. I'll share my LinkedIn, and we'll look forward to connecting with people.
Thank you so much, Jeffery. Investing in this stage is very exciting, has risky, but let's go. That's why we are here. Jerome, Deniant, Jerome, thank you so much for coming. President and co-founder of InFlow, City Lyon, France, mental health, digital health, medtech, seed around 300K is the ask in euros. How's it going, Jerome?
Going very well. Thank you for hosting this event, and very nice to meet you all of you guys.
Thank you so much for coming. If you want to give a short intro to yourself, much better than done. And after you can go straight to pitch, and Jeffery will follow up with the Q&A. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So to briefly introduce myself, I'm Jerome Deniant. I'm 30 years young, I like to say. I'm a PharmD doctor specializing in neurology and clinical trials. And almost 10 years ago, I decided to fully shift my career into the connections between the brain, the body, and the mind to focus into mental health. And couple years ago, I co-founded InFlow with a friend of mine who is a doctor and our CTO, and our goal is to develop a digital healthcare solution. So today I'm presenting to you InFlow, and our goal is to elevate your mental health with software and the hardware. So basically the problem we're trying to solve is mental health. Mental health around the world is affecting more than 1 billion people, which is 15 to 20% of the global population. And 2/3 of this population try to manage their issue themselves, and only 1/3 consult a healthcare professional. In France, in particularly, 1/4 of the population use medics such as anxiolytics and antidepressants. So our solution is a software. So we're developing a meditation mobile app with couple programs, 8-week program, different kind of features, and the hardware. And the hardware is developed by one of our partners. And basically, it's an EEG device. So it's the equivalent of a smartwatch, but for the brain. So it's a device you can plug in, plug out. You have electrodes on the internal face, measuring your brain waves, and you have an electrode measuring your heart rate, and you can basically monitor, understand, and progress for your mind and your physiologic metrics. So there is a whole timing occurring in the world right now. So you have adoption in the market, adoption by users, adoption by patients, a huge adoption on the academic side as well, and on the regulatory side as well. In terms of market sizing, today our market is worth more than $3 billion, and particularly within the Occidental Europe and the US, it's basically more than 20 million people that are aged between 18 to 50 years old that practice meditation and that have a mental health issue. So we have a couple competitors, of course, in the world, particularly in the US and in France for Petit Bamboo, for example, but we diverge ourselves through different features and ways of approaching the offer we provide to people. Our business model is a freemium model, so you can try the app for 4 weeks, and then it's a monthly or yearly subscription model. You also can buy the EEG device or rent it, kind of lease it to try it, have an on-hand experience. And if you like it, you can keep it and terminate the payment. And if not, you can just send it back and it's all good. Considering our team, we are 3 founders. So we are 2 doctors and 1 specialist in healthcare software development, Yves. He's worked with the government and our city here in Lyon to develop healthcare software. And we have an incredible advisory and scientific board that is not closed yet. So basically, I love to say that we know very well what we do best, but we know better what we don't know what to do. And we surround ourselves, that's our philosophy, with great minds and individuals who can help us and guide us into achieving what we want to achieve. So we have Jacques Tassi, who was the managing director of Ernst & Young France for almost 30 years. Dr. Vokcher is a West Coast Californian board-certified neurosurgeon who is very keen into mental health and brain connections. Dr. Ohanessian is a public and digital health expert, and Richie Bavasso is an East Coast founder who's founded 5 startups, exited 3 of them, and has a very keen understanding and deep knowledge of how to make regulated medical devices into the UK and the US. So these are a couple examples of our partners and our app. And basically what I love to emphasize is the brainwave rhythm during work. So you have a very heterogeneous rhythm. And during meditation, when you start breathing, you can clearly see a more homogeneous, a more rhythmic pattern. And you have the alpha waves and the theta waves being up. And that's very significant for relaxation. We have also AI integrated features, and what I love to emphasize again is the predictive analytics one that will allow us in the future to identify mental health and global health trends early for proactive well-being management. So basically today we're raising 500,000 euros. It might go up since we might be accepted in a big program in Zurich at the end of the month. So basically this will help us to complete the full development of our app, which the beta test would be available in 2 weeks, and then fully integrate the EEG software, submit the patents, apply all of them, start to integrate AI technology. And then for the end of the year or Q1 25, we'd like to start at least launching our RCT, randomized control pilot clinical study, and start to deploy and give a medical and scientific rationale around our product. So thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I'm very sorry because I tried to use your name in an English way to make my life a bit easier. Jeffery, if you want to follow up with your name, it's all about you guys. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you, Jerome, for that. Is the so I guess a couple of quick comments that I would share is when you're pitching out the model, I think one, is there any current revenue in the business, and is the product in market?
Okay, so we are pre-revenue and the product is not on the market yet. The EEG is, so it's already sold by our partner.
Okay. And so it's pre-revenue, pre-product launch. Software, any of the product, has it been tested in market enough that you can learn from it, or it's all pre-market?
So we did a first test sample a year ago. Now we improved and updated the whole firmware and software version. And within the next 2 weeks, we'll do the next big sample, so the real beta test phase.
Okay.
So we did an alpha test, and now it's the beta.
Okay. And is there any IP that you have filed patents on, or anything that you've been able to create unique value just to your organization?
So we do have, but we don't have the money yet. I mean, because it's expensive, part of the raising will be used to patent. So indeed, we have the software, so the whole code and our approach and our techniques will be patented. And the software of the device will be patented on ourselves as well.
Okay, so software tends to be a very tough, tricky spot to obviously patent, and time you can find nuances that would give you the upside value to lock other competitors out. So I think now I'll take what you've pitched and kind of that information and kind of break it down a little bit differently for you. So in business, early on, you have two ways of pitching your business to raise funds. You pitch the dream or you pitch the data. In this case, you're pitching the dream because you're pre-data. When you get to the data, which means the data is going to help you sell going forward, I think you really need to start to build and construct your story around what's the market you're going after. Are you focusing on France only to start? Is the data going to be focused on people that are already known to have mental health issues? Are you focusing on medical centers? Are you looking B2B, B2C? I think you have to define who your actual customer is and who wants to buy your product. Because right now it's kind of loosely that you've got $1 billion market, you've got an opportunity of 1 billion people with healthcare issues or mental health issues, but that's so broad. You have to find that focus. So who are the people that really want this? And some of the information I can give that might generate some concept is that you have Muse. Say Muse is the biggest product. Understand how many devices they have in the market. What's the usage rate? How often are they using them on a daily basis? Is your goal to take your product and go and sell it to someone that has a Muse because they understand your product and you're an upgrade to Muse and people are going to want to use your product over Muse? And if there is 100 million Muse products on the market, can you capture 10% of that by upselling your product into them because you have a better metrics for data, information, whatever it might be? So your goal is to figure out what is the problem I'm really trying to solve. Because, and we invested in a company very similar to yours, and unfortunately did an IP sale recently after 7 years of deep research and everything else they did. And it was a B2B, B2C. They changed a lot and shifted because they were trying to disrupt the market, but with data and information, but they had a tough time understanding who their primary was, because the market was so vast with so many different facets of where they could be in and where they couldn't be in. And the thing that was lacking was it's not about being able to be everything to everyone. It's about being one thing to one person, and that one person you can replicate 8 million times or 10 million times. It's figuring out who that one person is that has that problem you're replicating. And just as an example, let's just say that your device works the best with people that are Alzheimer's patients. It helps calm them and keep them cool and collective while they're going through the life changes. And that's who you focus on for the next whatever amount of time. Build data, build everything around them, your marketing. And now you've captured 10 million people in Europe that have this issue, and everybody's buying it because they want to help people with Alzheimer's be able to progress through life. And your product is going to help them go into meditation, go into calmness, etc. So now you have a defined product, a defined moment, and a unique opportunity. That's going to change the way your focus of your business is. If you're broad and open, yeah, you might have some investors, but the tough thing is that getting that follow-on, you're going to have a tough time challenging it because you can't define it, and someone can't say, Jerome's business does X. And as much as we want to solve everybody's problem, you have to define who the real problem is and really narrow it down to exactly that. Because in all of the businesses we find is that if there isn't a hyper focus, you don't have a starting point, either does anybody wanting to buy your product. So just something to keep in mind. I think the great thing that you have is a very strong advisor board and strong advisor group. I think that's huge. And a lot of businesses don't get that opportunity to have that. You got to figure out how to play into that. I would just speak to one person on the board so that you don't waste time. Just focus on one person that's really influential, that's helping you, and use that as your gateway to say this person wrote 12 books and they're phenomenal. Then everybody else will be lured to, wow, that's so amazing. And then the rest of the people you can talk in deep dive. Just it saves you on what your pitch is about. And then I think there's a few other things I would share later, but I think that you've got to really hone in on your problem to really benefit your upside.
Thank you very much for these insights. Can I answer a couple of your points?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Sure. So in the first instance, we'd like to implement as a B2C company, and we'd like to expand later on B2B, of course, because we're not Steve Jobs, so we're not selling ice creams. So as he said, so we're not selling ice cream, so we can't please everybody, right? And you got exactly the point. So our first target population, even if we'd like to capture the people who already have a Muse device, for example, who are meditating, or the people aged from particularly between 25 and 45 years old who are very active professionally and have a tough time balancing their personal and professional life, whether it's parentality or just life evolution, and that are seeking or already seeking for mental health solutions and are trying to find us, and we're going to them. And we'd like to implement it in Europe, so France being the pilot country with 2 English-speaking countries, and we'd like to ramp in the US as well. And for that, hopefully it's going to be good news in a couple of days, but we are actually semi-finalists in the HitLab Breakthrough Alliance Challenge that can offer a ramp on clinical trials for the US. So we have the US on the scope as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I would even hone that in just to one small spot. Just focus in on if it's Lyon only, it's big enough, and just try to figure out how you can get market opportunity share of people in that space because it's close to your home and network, and then you can start to spread. But if you can prove that there's a problem there with the people that have the mental health or whatever it is, then you can expand. I think when we try to expand too much, we haven't solved the real problem. Figure out where that is and who the case study is, and have a case study. Like, this is the primary person we're going after. I questioned it, and only because I'm not positive on it. I questioned the fact that mental health people are looking for a device that's going to help them with mental health. A lot of people that have mental health issues don't even know they have mental health issues. So that's why I looked at the Muse side, is that are the Muse people early adapters and that they see themselves as having mental health and this solved it? Or are they seeing themselves as being innovators looking for a tech that allowed them to find calmness? So I think if you can answer any of those questions, that'll help you determine that next stage.
Very interesting insights. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you so much, Jeffery. Thank you, Jerome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay with us. Don't go, because we'll bring you back soon. Meanwhile, I'm moving to Luca. Luca Venza, founder and CEO of Distinkt. Barcelona, Spain is the headquarters. Chemicals, nanotechnology, deep tech is the sector. And a seed round of 2.8 million euros. How's it going, Luca? Welcome back.
Hi, Max. Thanks so much for having me again.
Thank you for coming. Please, a short intro to yourself and pitch a Jeffery follow-up. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, sure. So Luca Venza, I'm originally from the United States. I've been living in Barcelona for 18 years. I originally moved here to do MBA and ended up staying and starting a family and now a company. So my background, for many years, I managed big development funds in Africa, Central America for USAID projects. So I'm used to big fund management. And then I worked in the oil and gas sector in strategy and development for 6 years after the MBA. Now, for the last really 10 years, I've been focused entirely on entrepreneurship. And you can find me online. I've done lots of training courses and programs on technology transfer and training scientists to be entrepreneurs. And I finally just found an idea in a team that I fell in love with. And I left all that and started the company full-time as a co-founder with Alex Julia, who spun out a patent in this technology from university. So super happy to be here and present to you Distinkt. So Distinkt is restoring trust in the brands that you love with printed security solutions. I have some bad news for you. 1 out of every 20 products that you've bought in the recent past is actually fake. That might be the shirt on your back. It might be the lotion that you put on your skin in the morning. It might even be the medicine that you give to your children. Counterfeiting is the largest criminal enterprise in the entire world, and we all support it whether we realize it or not. But let me tell you how it works. Brands manufacture goods. They send them on to distributors, to retailers, and eventually to end customers. There are additional channels for second-hand goods that are sold through resale platforms or auction houses. Counterfeiters have spent the past 30 years meticulously entering into every single phase of this value chain with fake goods, and they are now prolific. The impact of this is gigantic. Retailers are losing $300 billion in revenue every single year. Customers are losing faith in brands because they don't know what's real and what's not, and brand value has gone down by $30 billion. And increasingly, brands, retailers, resellers, and customers are all fighting and suing each other about who's responsible for counterfeit goods. And the trust has been completely broken down. To solve the problem, the industry has turned to holograms, RFID tags, and QR codes. But they have high failure rates of up to 50%, and they're simply not solving the problem sufficiently. There's a real war for technological supremacy in the industry, and the counterfeiters are winning. That's why we created Distinkt. We've approached this problem from a completely revolutionary new way based on science and technology. We've created patented nanoparticles which change color with a combination of UV and near infrared light. They can change color under fluorescence. What does that mean in English? Basically, we create really cool inks that you can see only by shining invisible light at it. Now, it might sound like science fiction, but it works. And we use this to create a lock and key solution. We can apply our particles to anything. It is an ink, it can go onto any product, and we use a digital reader as the key to unlock it. We can embed our product at the point of manufacturing or in resale houses where they have professional authenticators. Then we distribute the key to trusted stakeholders in order to protect you, the end customer. We can apply our solution directly to products or to tags or labels. Then our users download our app. We send them a unique light source to activate the ink, at which point they can authenticate digitally. Once it's in the digital world, our customers can use it to connect to blockchain solutions, to track and trace solutions, or whatever they want. We provide tremendous value to the market. We can increase revenues by $100 billion. We can recover some of that brand value that's been lost, and we can help reduce the ridiculous litigation that's going on in this industry. We are a B2B solution starting out. We charge $3,000 upfront for product integration, and then a $12,000 annual software license to maintain products live in our database. And we charge between 10 and 25 cents per unit, depending on the volume. Believe it or not, the market for anti-counterfeiting packaging is gigantic. It's a $140 billion industry. Within that, our segment is called, it's mass encoding solutions. And that's a $41 billion market. That's QR codes, UPC codes. The SAM for the US and EU is 24 billion. But the growth rate on this market is 12.9%, which means the market's going to double in the next 7 years, which is basically your investment timeline, which means that SAM is going to turn into 48 billion in our lifetime. And we believe we can capture 300 million in recurrent revenue in that space. In our industry, the two major indicators that are important are the ability to scale into industry and the irreplicability of the solution. Our competitors are good at one or the other, but no one can do both like we can. We've got great early traction. We have our first customer. We have several ongoing conversations with our target beachhead market, which is retail, luxury, reseller platforms, and auction houses. And we have 11 NDAs with larger companies pursuing revenue sharing agreements in secondary markets. Our team is amazing. We're composed of experienced entrepreneurs and scientists, which have started 8 companies and filed 10 patents. We have an amazing advisory board thanks to Berkeley Skydeck, the accelerator program, which we are just now completing. And we're raising $3 million to give us 24 months of runway to capture 29 customers and $5 million in recurrent revenue. So come join Distinkt and help us restore trust in the brands you love.
Thank you so much, Luca. Jeffery, I leave everything to you.
Luca, thank you. Great job. So on the product side, it's certainly a fascinating business. I believe I did see your pitch before, I think, or I saw something of it. So I think it's certainly morphed a lot, and which has grown. That's exciting to see. On the you mentioned that you had your first customer. Can you share a little bit more on the revenue side and what that looks like?
Sure. Our first customer is the Gaudi Foundation, which has released a series of exclusive collectibles into the NFT market. And actually, they've created these 3D printable dolls that they released in South Korea. So they're using us as their unique identifiers and bridging us between the blockchain solution for the NFTs and the physical markers that identify the doll as unique, which is great for us because it's kind of our dream of what a full integrated end product is for us, even though in this case, the blockchain doesn't belong to us. In the future, one day it will.
No, that's pretty cool. So when you set up this unique side on the NFTs and you're doing the imprint, you've shared with them the process. They take it over, they manage it, or are you directly doing this?
Yeah, we do all the physical markings ourselves. We don't let anyone in this particular case touch the ink. We will, for future applications, we will integrate into printing processes. So, we look at customers for like printing on labels or tags. We can integrate into existing printers. And so we kind of give them like a secret sauce, like a Coca-Cola formula. We give them the concentrate. They put that into the ink. It works. It passes through their printers fine. And it's on the tag as part of the as part of the original built product. It can be right on the tag or the label. In some cases, actually, in apparel, they've asked us to print directly onto the textile. They want us right on the product directly. So, it's an ink. It's super flexible. We can go onto any substrate. It's easy to protect with glossy coatings to prevent it from eroding in wash or laundry. It's scratch proof. It's a super resistant solution like that. Yeah.
So on the product side, just background wise, I've in years past through my travels, I've been in secret back closed offices where you can hand grab anything you want. It's super efficient fakes, right or wrong. For me, it was just more exploratory side to learn how and what they're doing and where you see this. And I do think that there is an opportunity here. And again, I'm going to go back to the comments I made on the first pitch, is I think you have to create for the audience your hyper focus of here's the category you're going after, and create the exclusivity to that. And the reason I say this is because everyone has different problems. You could say there's knockoff car parts, there's knockoff everything. So which one has the biggest potential with the most revenue to gain and the most profitability being lost? And what I say by that is apparel and textiles, they have 1,000 times markup. So maybe they have more interest because they want to keep maintaining their profitability. Or it might be that there's, I would say, probably my mind goes to Louis Vuitton handbags and those types of products. They've already built in a lot of this tech. And what you're trying to do is layer on to the existing tech profile. So when you buy a Louis Vuitton bag or any of these high-end bags that are anywhere from 300 to 3 million, what they're doing is you have to register the bag and then they tokenize the bag and follow you around through the blockchain on that. And it's because the bags change hands and they want to make sure that they can approve and authenticate the bag. So, and I have a very good close friend that works selling these high-end bags, and they go through this a lot. They're high to scams, they're high to everything. So if you can go where there's a lot of money and a lot of value to protect, it's a much easier cycle to close through on the value. And then it's deciding, does this product leave a stain? Does it leave an issue? Does it bring down the value of the bag? If it's only on the tag, do people remove the tag? But on the other side of it, just like if I bought a vacuum, I can register the vacuum. The registration then puts me on the side of it. I can then see the usage of the vacuum to make sure it's working. So I'm getting authentication all the way through, which creates a pattern, which then says this is the product I own and why. So I share that because we're getting to that level of usage of data metrics and tracking that brings more value back to how your product is. And I know with imaging, you can also microchip a lot of this textile paints, so that you can actually start to collect some form of data that also proves that this bag is where it is, whatever it is, registration purposes. There's a lot of tech that you can micro technology into it. And I'm thinking that if you focus on where the money is, you'll be able to turn clients faster and be able to use that as your case study on why this market is needed, because you're going after high-end bags or high-end X. That will change the whole model. It could be in cars, it could be anything. But I think if you find and define that, you're going to see that you'll get more value out of than just doing the buckshot spray.
Yeah.
And then it creates exclusivity to you as a brand, because now people are going to say, hey, I want you to do this for me. And you're going to say, hey, for the first 2 years, we can't take anybody else. We're just focused on bags. We need to prove this. And then you'll start to have a flood of businesses want in, right? So there's a bunch of upsides you can gain from that.
Yep.
I like the fact that you push the 7-year timeline, that's what investors want. 100% agree. That's valuable. Also, the team, I think you have a very good structure on your team side. Pick one person to just emphasize why they're getting you into a category and why they're the best person of the year and they're going to make you guys money. And then on the runway side, I think I would just share one thing, and exits are usually valuable, but let people understand who is trying to buy you, because every government wants their own money printing machines because they get scammed. What's the potential of you being scammed? What's the potential of somebody using your inks and your dyes to come up with their own version and start punching those out to confuse others when they're scanning and saying, wait, I've got 3 colors on this thing. You guys told me there's only 1. So now they've just confused the system. So there's a bunch of questions that'll come out of the tech, which you guys can refine and decide later. But I do think that if you can refine who is the category you're fitting the problem with, there's somebody out there that's going to buy you. Who are they and why?
Yep.
Because if they have this problem and there's so much money involved, eventually these companies will do it themselves because they don't want to pay somebody. But especially if you have to touch the product, that becomes even a process that's a lot more intrusive on the business front. So just like Coke, they don't want you in the Coke back room getting the Coke IP because you got to stamp it with your IP. So you might have to figure out what the soft circle workaround is so that these businesses can operate, but it always comes from you. And that, again, is a blockchain kind of structure. So how are you enabling that? So I think there's a lot of questions, and there are answers, obviously, for myself at the moment, but I think there's a lot of value there on how you're selling it through. And I think you're obviously you've got a great opportunity in a market that is wrought with issues. And I think you'll continue to build that up over time, which is great. So thank you.
So many great insights there. I could have a long conversation with you because I have some answers, but not all. I would just highlight 2 things. One is what we see the big shift in the industry is, people told us when we started, well, luxury brands don't care. And it's true that initially people like Gucci saw counterfeiting as kind of brand enhancing. It's like, oh, poor people can buy it and aspire to get the real thing one day. But what we've seen now is we're at a tipping point where there's more fake goods available than real goods, and they're identical in product quality, sometimes coming out of the same warehouse. So now brands are actually panicking. So that's creating, just to your point, absolutely apparel and accessories are the place to be, because it's like a feeding frenzy right now of legal battles trying to figure out who pays for this. So
they're selling them at the same price. So these fakes are making huge money. So that's really pissing them off, right?
Cheaper. So what I love about our solution is, just to go back to one of the comments you made, was by validating on our software, basically every QR code has to be scanned by us to be authenticated. And that gives us all the point of sale data for these collectible handbags that get sold and resold 3, 4, 5 times over the lifetime. And we can aggregate all that data and sell it back or give it back to the customer for marketing, sales, pricing strategy. So yeah, I won't get into all the other stuff. I just want to say I love that space. I love that comment. And I think we've got a really good strategy going there. And now it's just kind of prove it. And that's what we're focusing on the next 3 to 6 months.
I think it would be good too, just from your own pitch side, is also understanding, and I think this is going to be for all founders and starting to come out more now, is that the world's changing at such a rapid speed. Where do you see your product eventually having to go in order to tackle the fraud? Like the fraudsters are changing every day, right? And they're getting better, sharper, quicker, faster than we are at building the companies and the products. So if they're going to make sure you're not trapping them and having them lose money, what do you have to keep doing to enhance the technology on your side? So it would be good to understand that in the future, because the market is, again, the scam artists are faster and better at that than we are at building a product. So how are they getting around it?
and that's my favorite question to answer. I won't get into it too much because it's a lot of science, but we've got the best nanochemists on the planet. We're doing with physical responsive inks to light responsive inks. We're doing things that no one's ever been able to do. No one's ever been able to change color under fluorescence in the history of humankind. And we've had many banknote ink companies who are professionals at this, who come to us and say, how did you do that? We've tried, we couldn't. The Central Bank of Europe, when I said we have all these secondary partners we're talking to about revenue sharing markets, those are them. Those are passports. That's money where we can't build a company to compete there, but we can be a material supplier to some of those really interesting applications. And that's just been great technical validation for us. And we have a lot of great ideas that I won't get into in a public forum on new IP. We've got a lot of money for R&D from different grants from the Spanish government, and we're already working on Gen 2, Gen 3 concepts and have some super exciting ideas.
I love it. Great to hear.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Luca. Thanks, Jeffery. We have some technical problem with our third founder. So meanwhile we are waiting, hopefully we can fix the problem, otherwise will be for the next time. We are bringing back Jerome now. And again, meanwhile we wait for Sophie if the problem is fixed. Jerome, as we always like to close, and after we leave the last talk to Jeffery, in case Jeffery wants to give you more advices how to move forward. In 10, maximum 20 seconds, your best elevator pitch, why invest in your startup, to Jeffery and to all the investors watching today.
So yes, thank you for this opportunity again. So we are a team of very ambitious entrepreneurs and scientists, and precisely doctors. And we are building the next generation of device people will be able to use to control, understand, and monitor their mental health. And later on a later phase, we'd like to disrupt the healthcare industry by developing a layer 1 protocol using and leveraging new emerging technologies applied to our industry.
Thank you so much, Jerome. Luca.
You just heard me, but I'm going to just highlight two things. Listen, there's no bigger problem in the world than counterfeiting. And I won't get into it, but when you realize the billions of dollars that we're funneling to organized crime and what they can do with that in terms of drugs, in terms of human trafficking, in terms of weapons, in terms of terrorism, these are absolutely horrifying concepts. So there's no bigger problem on earth that we need to solve. Well, certainly it's one of the top three. And we're working in one of the most exciting scientific discovery areas, which is photonics, chemistry. We're doing incredibly exciting things, and we've got an amazing team to keep building cool products. So we're just getting started. You're going to be hearing from me for the next decades about the new products and new solutions we provide. So I think it's a super exciting journey to come on.
Thank you so much, Luca. I believe we fixed the problem with Sophie, so we can bring Sophie to the stage.
I'm sorry, there was no problem. I thought you guys had blocked my camera, so I just checked and it was cut, but I was here all along. So
no problem, we're even better. And we are happy. So, Sophie Fluzin, founder of Mena, Lisbon, Portugal.
Fluzin.
FinTech, women's health, health tech, digital health, mobile app. Pre-seed and $500,000 in USD is the ask. Sophie, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. If you want to give a short intro to yourself, and you can go straight to pitch, and Jeffery will follow up with the Q&A. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for having me. So I am Sophie. I'm the founder of Mena. We'll talk about Mena in a few. I'm a software engineer by training. Currently, I'm a solution architect. And I've been working on this project because this is something I suffered from, premenstrual syndrome, the aggravated version. And for the last 2 years, I managed to save my life, basically like that. And I noticed that very few women were aware of it. And that's how this adventure, this journey started, basically. A quick question. Okay, so I'm the one who have control. Okay. So Mena is the all-in-one natural and digital solution for premenstrual syndrome. So premenstrual syndrome is the most common hormonal disease amongst women. It affects 75% of women worldwide in their childbearing age. PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, the aggravated version of premenstrual syndrome, affect 8%, but since it takes 12 years and 6 providers to be diagnosed with PMDD, this number is grossly underrated. So the problem is that today the solutions are very heavy. We're talking about heavy medications such as pill, antidepressant, gonadotropin-releasing hormone, and even in extreme cases, a hysterectomy, which is the removal of all ovaries. So what is PMS very quickly? PMS is a collection of 100 plus 50 symptoms, physical, emotional, psychological. It's due to the sensitivity to hormone fluctuation during the menstrual cycle. So from breast tenderness to irritability to depression to suicidal thoughts, it affects women from 1 to 2 weeks a month, depending the case, from the age 15 more or less to age of 49. Then menopause takes over because why not? So in total, it's around 8.5 years of misery in a woman's lifetime. So the solution is very simple. We need to accelerate diagnostics. So we have an automated diagnostic that creates a hormonal profile. This hormonal profile will create a box selection with natural solutions, supplements, and period care that the user can customize and get delivered according to the cycle directly to their door. They're also supported by an application. The hormonal diagnostic today, we identify PMS, PMDD, hormonal condition, and period problems, 130 combination, 5 minutes, and we can use it to print a report and bring it to the gynecologist to accelerate time to diagnostic. Why an application? So premenstrual syndrome is actually it can be tackled, actually can be reduced drastically, but for this we need to tackle it from a different angle. Exercise, therapy, nutrition, lifestyle, supplements. We don't need heavy medication to actually fix even PMDD. So the application of Mena would be the first application dedicated to PMS and PMDD in the market, and will allow a user to track their symptom, their cycle, plan their life around PMS and PMDD, and act on it with symptom-based coping strategies based on dialectical behavior therapy. But more importantly, this application will feature an emergency support to tackle suicidal thoughts and community support, which is something that our users right now are doing in places that have nothing to do with this, like Facebook or even Reddit. So physically, this is what it looks like. This would be like supplement, herbal tea, and custom period care. This is the initial value proposition. The market, so women 50 to 49 years old, around conservative approach, 60% of them suffering from PMS. There are 1.2 billion worldwide. This is the number of people. The SAM that we are addressing, Western Europe and the US, around 80 to 85 millions. With an LTV of 360 euros with a 6-month subscription, we are addressing a market value of 60 million euros. Some here is conservatively of 8% in the market. This persona, Anna, that we have, I'm sorry, I'm going a bit fast, but I have to, was crafted after extended market research in groups that we're going to see now. So we went into 20 different groups in different platforms, featuring 170K plus users. We have 120 users today in waiting list. We have many respondents, and we have 10 women right now in Lisbon using our solution, going to a feedback loop with us to make sure that the value proposition is on point. Business model, it's a DTC, e-commerce, mainly subscription, but also an application with a standalone subscription if needed that will act as a funnel to feed our e-commerce. Our competition are in 3 different buckets: hygienic protection, supplements, and apps. We are in the middle with Flow Living. I think we can address, I'm convinced, we can address this very simply, and we'll actually be the first one really dedicated to premenstrual syndrome, which is funny given how common it is. What we need to take off is 500K pre-seed to build a very strong application to replace what the users are doing right now in a very disorganized way, building a proper brand, defining the supply chain, establishing a workshop here in Lisbon, and also investing in marketing. We're a small team because we're pre-seed now. We just started like in November. It's me and my co-founder Eliana, who's in charge of all the marketing things. And I'm going to finish here because I still have 7 seconds left. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Jeffery, please.
Thank you, Sophie. I think great. I guess a great problem that you're solving. I think that a few of the comments I'll share, but before I get into that, You mentioned that you have some trials with 10 women.
Yes,
What are
absolutely.
the outcomes that you're trying to receive from that? Is it pure data? You've got 1 million data points and they're just, I don't know, phone calls and 1 million things are sharing back. Like how are you structuring that? And what are you looking for that from the 10 people?
So this is our first batch for this trial. So we're trying to organize a protocol specifically. Right now it's the beginning, so it's slightly a bit disorganized. We follow them from everything related to their cycle, from like the nutrition, the lifestyle, and then we actually give them physically the product, and we follow them with like surveys to see how they're improving with time. We started this last month. Basically, this is the second month, so we have to conduct the trial batches in 3 months, like minimum usually, because it takes 3 months to have a proper baseline for hormonal changes. But we already
And
see magnificent results. I'm really happy, actually.
that's good. Is it a controlled environment? Like, is it a controlled setup? Like you're just basically just getting feedback, meaning that you've got a pattern of what you want them to take and do, but it's not controlled environment. It's not controlled anything. So they can go have a bag of chips. They just got to write it down, but it has nothing to do with your nutritional plan because everybody doesn't follow everything to a T. So in order to not get beat up by the science community, they're going to say it's not a controlled environment. You didn't do these measures to control every aspect of what's going into your study. So is it more open-ended because you're just doing research, or have you gone into a controlled environment for this?
Now, control environment will be done at some point. Right now, we don't see it necessary. What we're trying to do basically is to be sure that we're really fixing the problem and the value proposition is the right one. So we can pivot eventually the business model or the product themselves.
Okay. So very, very early on in your analysis then of what your products potentially can do and what the outcome is.
It has to be early on. Early on in the
Agreed.
beginning, so it can be better by it's
Okay. And do you
entrepreneurship
have
method
any
we're
of
following.
okay. And do you have any of your 10 test subjects doing placebo?
No, not yet. That's why, because right now it's really just the value proposition, but we will do, once we do to clinical, I kind of like to do a proper clinical trial at some point. Then we will do like, of course, get the help of maybe a company to help us in this prospect to do it properly. Yeah.
Okay, for sure. So I guess in this, and I mentioned this earlier, when you raise, you can sell the data or you can sell the dream. So you're kind of in the dream state because you're getting some data, but you can't use that to kind of prove where your model's sitting right now. So that'll enable others to say, like you started off by using a lot of data facts. 75% of females suffer from X of PMS. So I love data, so that's how my head works. So I want to be able to understand where the data fits into where the model is of where it's going. So that's why controlled studies, placebo, all those things are going to be beneficial to you proving this data pattern for why your product is working, what the effect was that you had a bump of 10%, say less thoughts of X and Y. I would then also shift your model to PMS is super broad, as you mentioned. There's I think it was 170 different effects. So
150.
150, sorry. So because there's so many, I think that the reason why I love what you're doing is because that's such a broad bucket of, I'm sure I could go through and pull out 100 of them and think I'm going through PMS every day too, because there's so many of them that they're relatable to people. But I think that there's ones that are really hyper-focused to the outcome of what you're trying to solve.
Absolutely.
And I think if you can define what those are, maybe there's 3 or 4. If you make it too many, it becomes too broad. But I think from a female perspective, they can define themselves by saying, I know I'm going through this because it's 5 days before X and I have migraines, I have the X and I have Y. And those are the people you're trying to tackle because they are so refined that they know this every month. I got bloating that kills me. I have migraines and I start to get woozy and I can't stand up. Whatever those are, then you can focus your model after going after those groups because those are already really well-defined PMS attributes. And then you learn the other ones from those individuals. Because I think a lot of people have a tough time realizing that they're going through what they're going through. So you knew what you were going through and you worked through it and you said, I got to solve this problem. I think a lot of people don't have any idea that they're going through it and they don't know that they're all related to that. So how do you structure a message so that you can onboard people super easily because they can look at it and say, every month I have this thing, I got to try this out. Your goal is to figure out what that one thing is that is going to get millions of people coming to you because you're solving that. And I don't know what it is. It could be weight loss. It could be migraines. You have to figure out what it is, because then everybody can come to you for that, right? It's really trying to get that lined up. And I think too that you mentioned a couple of the pain points, like you mentioned misery. I think you should use a different word than misery. I'm sure it is misery, but again, to get people to know what you're doing, it has to be that if it's deep psychological problems, like what is the word that defines misery for you? What is it that caused you to dive into this, so that other people will say, shit, yes, I agree. Everywhere you can retain it back to your thesis or your model will help people reposition their mindset of why you're solving this problem. And if it's too broad, then you'll get too much fluff from people, because they won't be able to figure out how they get into your box. You need to make it so tight that no one will understand it, but they'll be saying, I got that problem, I got to fix this. And Sophia and company can do it. And I think that's where you're going to take this a long way, because I think that's what's missing in this space, is that no one's refined it down so that I'm walking along a shelf and I see your product and it just clicks in my head, I have this problem every month, I need help. So, and again, that'll take your testing, that'll take time for you to kind of work through those. But I think in your branding and your marketing side, I think there's a huge upside potential, that there is a couple of symptoms that are part of this whole structure. So, and I think that's really the biggest one, is the challenge, is the misunderstanding of how you put PMS into a box and allow people to come into it and understand it. I think it's broad and everybody talks about it, but I don't know if they really understand all of the exact symptoms, because there's many, but which one can you tackle to win and make people buy your product? Outside of that, you may look at the product side and what's in it. I don't know if you're going to CBD and have any test results from that to show that these products have been helpful or not. I don't know the scientific reviews on it, but I do think you should try and create a white paper at some point in time that will really emphasize the solution and how these products are reducing these 3 symptoms by 80% or whatever the number is. And that will really carry you a lot of value in your model. And of course, all the studies you're doing, that's awesome. Hands down, brilliant. The more you can get of those and more being done, and getting more clinics that are already running studies to run those for you, allows you to build a real sharp white paper. And again, that I think is going to carry you a long way. So again, I'm a fan. I like what you're doing. I think there's a huge opportunity here. So
thank you very much. I like what you said about like packaging. I would say like most common symptom, because for the sake of presentation, I made it very quick, give you an idea. You have very, very extremely common 6 symptoms that are extremely common, with satellite condition that can vary according to woman to woman. So the idea also to have this application is that, because symptom tracking, which is completely different what's happening today in the cycle tracking app that we have today in the market, they consider PMS as one symptom, which is terrible, because everything that they classify as a symptom is actually from PMS, right? They don't even let people like follow them over time to see how they're doing, how they improve, right? There's a very big misunderstanding in this condition. And the idea to have an application that will help the women do what they're doing here today manually in different places in one place will help us actually identify patterns and actually feed more the research on this condition, right? Which is also PME, which is so much worse than PMS. And I would like to integrate machine learning and AI to really like learn from these patterns, actually focus the value proposition, but also help the medical research in this aspect. I would like to open business first, and one day close business, actually, hopefully, because women are free from this terrible condition. And yeah, the word misery, I need to think about it. English is not my first language for sure. That's how I would say it in French. I think maybe in English it means something else for sure. That makes sense. And there's a lot of work of education on the subject. Absolutely, this is something I'm looking at with my co-founder, and also we're talking to a marketing agency on the side to see how we can find a way to funnel people first for lead generation at this stage, and then in the future how we can integrate seamlessly education on the subject and talk to the most women possible and make it also accessible and affordable to everybody. So thank you for the feedback.
You bet. There's the other thing I'd add is, if there's a way to integrate into other studies and other things that are happening, like right now, there's a big study going on. I think it's it was all US based. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a study that's been going on menstrual excretion, and they're looking at this as a huge healing medicinal from the blood. So they started testing this, and they're showing that, wow, a cut can heal 80 times faster just by utilizing that blood. So there's so much that's being now started to explored around what's going on this, and it's changing the landscape. So if you said, hey, we're going to stay in trials, your business, for the next 3 years, and we're only going to focus on building these trials out, and then we can take, because your focus is premenstrual, you can then say, we're partnering with this menstrual company, and we're going to take all of the outcomes that we're deriving from our app and from our product, and we can now do test strips and other things that can get sent in. You can get rev share model from that. And now you've got more full circle and this circular economy, which is, can you build byproducts out of what you're doing in testing and bring
100%.
those people into your system and then outlay everything else? So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the studies that are already being done that you could layer into and get them to start promoting the usage of your product. And I don't know if pushing hard in the, it's an app that does all of this. I think it's capturing the data. So you become a data company in it per se, not a technology driven product. And it may be just data. And if you have to determine what that is and what the outcome is, the product, if you're a tech company, you're a data product, or you're a product company, I think you have to define where that fits, because a lot of investors will tend to say you're one or the other or whatever bucket it is. I think you have to define what your outcome is. And if it's a product company or CPG, then that, that's the direction you have to kind of sell it, but figure out where you fit in that stream and then where you want to end up, because you're really 3 businesses in one. So you have to figure out which one's going to bring you the most traction today versus the future.
That's a tough discussion, because I think both can the product and the application can bring the traction, because today the problem in the market is that we have many applications, and that's not enough because it's a physiological response, right? So we need those intakes of plants, herbal medicine that works really well. Those have been clinical studies already for more than 80% of them, not by me, by scientists already. And also there is this, there is one app today in the market. It's not even an app. It's from the IMPD, which is an NGO for PMDD, that does this, and which is obsolete today and very badly. But it's just one. Women are just left on their own in this problem. So I think there could be traction in both. One could be acting as a funnel to the other, but I really do not want to drop the physical solution, because this is what saved me, basically, because I was suffering from PMDD myself, the really, really bad version. So yeah.
Yeah, there's even underwear now, female underwear, that's tracking menstrual cycles and when they're coming on, heat, temperatures, everything. So there's a lot of things that are playing in the market, and you just have to figure out, again, the slice that you're going after and the problem that you're solving, and then testing how your product solves that. And if it's one product versus a box, like, you have to decide what's really going to bring the value. And through that testing, I think you'll refine it, which is going to get you to one solution or one outcome. And then that will define if you're a CPG or you're an innovative product or you're a data, right? So I think just keep all those things in mind as you're testing. But and again, great. I know it's a new start, but it's still a pretty cool spot you're going after.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Thank you, Jeffery. So we are very close to the closing today. Let's bring back all of funders. Jeffery, you've done an astonishing performance today. If you want to just give, in case, the last advice to all of funders, general one, as you saw all the pitch, and after we close.
For sure. Well, great job, everybody. I would say that, and I probably said this a few too many times in my day of working with great founders, is when you're solving your problem, it's always tough to put yourself in a box, especially early on. Everything's broad, you're learning, and you want to be able to define where you're going. But at the same time, it's more a perception of where the rest of the market sees you, that's how you've refined yourself. But in the background, you'll explore other areas and other revenue streams and things that will always build in. So if your brain is walking into a football stadium, there's 1 million doors and 1 million seats. Your goal is to get into the locker room. because that's hyper-focused. And that's your goal at some point in time, that you're going to drive yourself there. And, you know, business people fit in that box. So while you're doing that in your pitch, I would try to always emphasize let people understand what that main problem is. So if it's a one-line problem, this is what I'm solving. You can solve 12 other things, but to the investor and to the community, it's one thing. I'm the best at this one thing. And it may shift over time. Your solution is still one solution to that problem. And then the rest of it, focus on how you make money. And I noticed that obviously Luca has done this and was able to put a bit more on the financial side. Investors want to be able to say, can this make money? Can this scale? And this is a global product. Can you guys move this product globally in the next 3 to 5 years? It's not obviously overnight, but I have to be able to envision it. So you're trying to build an envision pitch. So you have to, work with me on my big ideas kind of idea. And I think that will draw people into being able to understand where your end goal is and where your product can take them. And that's where I think that global domination per se comes into your mind, but you're really refined with this direction of where you can potentially go, and financials can help show that. Market segments, where you're starting off, all those little things really help you define it. But if you can focus a bit more on the financial side, so people can understand what you'd sell this product for, or what your model is going to make, how much revenue you can generate and profit, those things allow people to really dive into your goals. And the last thing would be, at the end, someone has to buy you. And if you build a company that no one has to buy you, then you're really in a unique space. But you also have to realize that your company has a higher percentage chance of being sold by the time you get to a Series A than it will at any other point in time. And the reason being is that you're filling a gap for a mid-level company that's trying to become a global player. So they need to fill that gap. They need your 30 million in revenue to build into their company. So who are you filling the gap for so that you can make somebody else bigger? It's really everybody's eating each other up along the way, right? So the large players buy the mid-tier buy the small players. And if you don't figure out how you fit into a mid-tier player, then eventually you have to keep growing, or you run out of money, or you don't get there. So who's going to buy you in a mid-tier that will be excited to have you on the team to obviously compete against Apple and everybody else in the world? So you got to fill a gap. What is that gap you're filling? And once you learn the gap that you're going after and who that is, then you can kind of shape your business around it. It becomes a no-brainer for them to buy you. So if you have an idea of it, it's always good to lob a few of those out and start having those conversations when you get further along into that seed plus Series A time, because there's going to be a lot of interest for these companies to scale, and you're the right opportunity for them to do that.
Thank you so much, Jeffery. I'm sure all the founders, not only Sophie, Jeremy, and Luca, but all the founders watching today, because we have founders, investors, of course, watching a podcast or pitch event. These are advices that they are very much worth it. Sophie, Jeremy,
Yes.
and Luca, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been absolutely a pleasure for me. Thank you, Jeffery, for all your great advices and all the great Q&A with our founders. Thank you, everyone watching our pitch event today, and I see you next week. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Max and Jeffrey. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.